the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Going back to school is literally right around the corner for many students and families. In fact, some are going back later this week. Do you have everything on the list? Students need new notebooks and pens, but our next guest comes to remind us all that what we really need, what really matters, is not that they have all the perfect supplies, but their relationship with the Lord. Joining us live this morning is a regular contributor Emily Jaminet to talk about back to school spiritual makeover for the entire family. Emily is a Catholic author, a wife, a mother of 7. She's also the executive director of WelcomeHisHeart.com, and her book that recently came out, Holy Habits from the Sacred Heart. Emily, thanks so much for joining us. It's great to be with you once again here on day one of our summer pledge drive.
I am with you. Good morning.
Good morning. So good to be with you here on opening day of our summer pledge drive, our Answer the Call summer pledge drive, Emily. And you've been through these so many times before. Before we talk about going back to school, for listeners and especially some of the moms out there that might be busy getting their families ready for this day, why should our listeners support the mission of Relevant Radio?
I think supporting the mission of Relevant Radio is the most important way that we can change the culture, not only in our own home, in our own car, choosing what we want to play on the radio as we're driving to and from school or maybe to and from the grocery store, but also the way to introduce others to Christ. So I just really am so supportive of the app. I listen to it frequently, daily, with the In Conversation with God, pray the rosary along with it as well. And of course, we just love morning air. So I can't encourage our listeners enough. If you want to impact your own heart, home, and the world, support Relevant Radio.
Well, Emily, I'm especially excited about this pledge drive because it's coming literally just weeks after the National Eucharistic Congress. And if for no other reason, just what we were able to bring to so many listeners in this country and around the world with the sights and sounds of the National Eucharistic Congress, that is such a compelling reason to support Relevant Radio.
I think it really is. And I want to first by saying thank you on behalf of all the moms out there. Thank you so much for allowing us to lend our hearts to the Eucharistic Congress, allowing us to connect and to be encouraged and to be vessels of hope for the future, because our disposition, especially as parents, is essential for being able to be the leaders, to be the parents, and hopefully to be the future saint that we're called to be.
All right, Emily, what's the first thing that we can do in our homes to have that spiritual makeover as our children get ready to go back to school?
Well, as you mentioned at the very beginning, my husband and I spent the weekend getting the uniforms ready and the correct socks and shoes and pens and pencils. But what's really does matter is the significance of living out our Catholic faith. Our children look to us as examples, and they don't just want to, hear the right words, but they want to be able to see the gospel living in our life. But I think the very first place to begin is to entrust your children to the Blessed Mother, the perfect mother. So I think that the feast that's coming up on August 15th, the Feast of the Assumption, is a beautiful, new beginning, spiritual makeover opportunity to not only going to Mass, but entrusting your children to Mary, the perfect mother, to be able to bring all of us closer to Jesus.
The Feast of the Assumption is a holy day of obligation, but it shouldn't be an obligation. It should be a joy to be able to honor our mother.
Well, I wanted to begin talking about this really important feast day because it is important that you plan your calendar right now, that you make sure you know what Mass you're going to go to, speak about it with your family, and maybe even shift your language a little bit to, instead of saying we have to go to Mass, maybe say we get to go to Mass, and making sure that we make these days extra special, from what we serve, the kind of food we have, to, which Mass we choose to go to. I think it's important that we get our children prepared to go back to school, not just with pens and notebooks, but spiritually. And I also want to say I can't think of a better way to prepare them than continue to listen to Relevant Radio, continue to have Catholic radio streaming through your car. And my older children will tell you that made a big difference on their childhood as they're now young adults, for being able to answer those hard questions when they went to school as well about their faith.
What should be our attitude, and what should the culture of our homes look like if we want to make this spiritual makeover here before school starts?
I think it's really important that we do that look of what's going on in our home. Does our home reflect the peace, love, and joy of Jesus Christ? I believe that this is the area, the component in which we are most under attack as families, is setting up our home to resemble our Christian faith and values. And I also believe, honestly, that the scriptures, these past recent Sundays in Ephesians, are very, very convicting to me alone. Putting past this past Sunday, bitterness, fury, anger, shouting, some of those strong words that we heard in Ephesians 4:30. But for us, our attitude, how we speak, making sure that the music, the culture resembles our Catholic faith so that the soil is right for them to receive the gift of faith as well.
I'm glad you said that, Emily, because I read the second reading at Mass this Sunday, and man, was that burning deep inside my heart when I was saying it, because, there's shouting sometimes. There is fury. And you're right. We need to, take that to heart. God's trying to talk to us and say, what are the things that we're doing that we need to have that little bit of a makeover? Obviously there's frustrations and things come out, but how can we seek to do that better? So we're reflecting, like you said, the values and the Christianity, we're receiving Jesus, for goodness sake. We have to be able to reflect that. And it's a journey, but it's something we need to keep pondering and trying to figure out.
Well, and the scriptures just speak to us because, in the gospel, it went right back to Jesus is the living bread, as we learned in John 6. So it's through receiving the spiritual bread of Jesus Christ. It's by going to Mass. It's by receiving, but then allowing our heart to change. And the one word that my husband and I went for a walk last night to talk about the scriptures and really see, this come alive in our life is like, we got to put past the critical spirit when we're parenting, right? How can we be more instructive? How can we be more compassionate? Like in the scriptures it talked about forgiving and imitators of God. And, there's nothing worse when you feel like that person is just coming down on you for everything you did wrong versus instructing you in the ways of growing as children are, that's their role in life. So no one's perfect, but we are called to be above it. And St. Margaret Mary also shared this really powerful quote, above all, I beg you to always be lighthearted, joyful, and happy, for this is the true mark of the Spirit of God. So I took that quote and I've taken it to heart because sometimes, I can be way too serious about the pens and the notebooks and forget it's my attitude that tells my children a lot more about the faith and what matters the most.
What about the family prayer life? The family that prays together stays together, as Father Rocky says every night. What can we do during this back-to-school time?
Well, I think that's really, really important. One of the things that our family's committed to is family prayer. Right now we're saying a beautiful novena. My college daughter has asked us to lead to St. Therese. She picked the saint, and we gather in the evenings to pray for this very important prayer intention. So it might just be a few minutes like praying novena. And then afterwards, we went and finished our rosary together, and we sat outside. We brought the Mary statue out. We put some candles, and it was awesome. And she said, Mom, this is just so peaceful when we do this. So prayer should be, the fruit of prayer should be peace. And sometimes, when you have little ones, I'm sure you remember it's more challenging, but making sure we have the right attitude and we stay in the game. Don't throw the towel in, just stick with it and continue to see yourself as laying that foundation.
What can we do in our homes to have a spiritual makeover is a good question. And I know that in our home, for example, we have some images to remind us of our faith. The Sacred Heart is very prominent the minute you walk into our living room, and we have an image of our Blessed Mother, the beautiful image of Our Lady as the Immaculate Conception of Murillo is in our living room. So these little images can really go a long way, Emily.
They can, these holy habit stop signs, we might call them, just beautiful images throughout our home. I recommend making sure you have a crucifix, for example, in all your children's bedroom. And most importantly, allow these to be opportunities for prayer, for, that pausing so that you can grow closer to the Lord. and even do an inner look in your own heart. Once everyone's out the door and their backpacks are set and they're heading out the door, make sure that, you pause and thank the Lord for the gift of your vocation. Never be too exhausted to pray.
Amen. We'll have to leave it right there. As always, Emily, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being with us. This entire episode of Morning Air is on the Relevant Radio app. The Relevant Radio app is completely free and updated daily with fresh articles, podcasts, and prayers. Don't delay. Download the app today, and thanks for listening.